Hello, Embers. Welcome to Ember Exchange. I'm so glad that you are back here with us as we are back here with each other. I am Dylan.
I'm Jill.
I'm Heidi.
Today's episode is going to be a little bit lighter again. So we had a fun Valentine's Day themed episode with fantasy and love and all those things. And then we went really spicy for our last episode. So to kind of bookend the spiciness, we're going to go back to something fun. And I'm really excited about this topic because we've actually kind of been teasing it a lot if you've been listening along over the past several episodes. So I'm excited to stoke some conversation.
Let's go.
So, the topic that we're going to discuss today is acquired tastes, which has come up a lot when we've been doing our semi-recently named Mortal Spirits section of the
We're doing
podcast.
fantasy again?
So that's a bit of an insight into what you feel about acquired tastes. But the idea being, right, there are certain things that we or people like or don't like that are maybe considered challenging to like or not something that everyone likes. And if you develop a taste for that over time, we call that an acquired taste.
Yes.
So more specifically, this would refer to the phenomenon of learning to prefer a flavor or food that we don't initially like following repeated ingestion. So it often applies mostly to like foods and flavors. But this concept, I think, my postulate, which I will begin with, hypothesis is the correct word, not postulate, is that the concept of acquired tastes can be applied to more than just food. It can extend to activities and preferences in other spaces as well. So to start off, everyone is kind of coming into this with some preconceived notions. Heidi, I'm going to have you start with what
right.
your idea of acquired taste is, and then we're going to throw it to Jill for the other perspective. So
Yeah, so I think that tastes can certainly be acquired. And in some ways it should be acquired because it might be something that you initially hate that actually is good for you, and you must kind of exposure therapy yourself into enjoying it. So yeah, I think acquired tastes are great. I think it's a part of the way that our brain develops and the way that we're able to just grow and change throughout our lives. Yeah.
okay. So an advocate for acquiring tastes on this side of the table.
Yes.
Jill, tell me
Yeah.
what you think about acquired tastes.
The most common comment I make when talking about acquiring tastes is if it has to be acquired, maybe it's not worth it.
Okay.
And that's not to say that I haven't acquired the taste for anything. We'll probably get into that a little later, but I had to work harder at the things it took me a while to think of things that I've acquired the taste for.
Okay.
However,
Now, sorry, do you think that you just naturally like more things off the bat so you don't have to acquire tastes for stuff? Because
Yeah.
that could be a case where somebody's like, boy, I can't think of something I've acquired. I just kind of like stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as I was thinking about this, and like you mentioned earlier, we've teased it before, and I know that it is a topic of conversation in our household. The first thing I thought of too was what is the opposite of acquiring a taste? So I think there's actually kind of two opposites of acquiring the taste, and the first one would be something being innate. Right? That would mean you wouldn't have to acquire it because it just naturally is occurring. But then
You already have a taste for
you
it.
already have a
Right,
taste for it, so
right.
you're not acquiring the taste. The other one, or the other opposite, kind of has two, is either rejecting or forfeiting the taste. Like you attempt to acquire it and then just either decide or give up on, I'm not sure whichever one occurs, and you just like don't, and so therefore you don't acquire it. It has been forfeited.
There's some point at which you decide the effort required to acquire this taste is no longer worth the suffering that I'm going through
Yes.
in
to
order to
acquire
acquire it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So like a failed acquisition of some, to but in a weird way.
Correct. Yes, because also when I was looking at the opposite, I also decided to look at the definition as well, and acquiring also had a portion of it was like to become in possession of something.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you either innately possess something that you like, you work on acquiring it, or you try to acquire it and you give up or forfeit or however you fail.
Okay. So then to clarify, you're not saying that nobody can acquire tastes.
Correct.
You're just saying that you don't want to acquire tastes.
Yes, I don't acquire tastes. I thought long and hard.
And is that a conscious choice, or is that something that about you think?
There are things that I really have attempted, and when we go through our list, I did really try to acquire the taste of certain things. And I just could not.
Okay. So
I feel like I gave it a fair effort. It wasn't like, oh, I tried Brussels sprouts once and was like, I hate vegetables and Brussels sprouts.
Okay.
Like, I gave certain things a fair shot, and we can go into how long or what I did to do those certain ones when we get there. But I feel like I just naturally cannot acquire them as easily as other people, potentially.
Interesting.
But I don't know. My pool of testing this theory also is like me and then you. And obviously, as we get to it, your list is, I think, much longer than mine.
Yeah, Dylan's list is much longer than Jill's.
Acquiring tastes.
Okay. Interesting. So I think I belied my position a little bit at the beginning. I'm like a fan of acquiring tastes.
Yes.
Like acquiring tastes is kind of a hobby.
He's like acquired the taste of acquiring tastes.
I literally have that question written down. Is acquiring tastes an acquired taste? Could it be that it is so? And, I don't know. But I think it's really fun. And part of it has to do with that I have, like you said, successfully acquired a number of tastes. And so if I decide hey, I want to learn to like a thing, whiskey is a great example of one of those things, and we'll go into more of those. I've successfully been able to do so. And so that gives me confidence. The next time I'm like, oh, there's a thing that I don't like. I wish I liked it, that I will in fact be successful. And so there's a psychological piece there that I think plays a huge role.
Yeah.
Why, though, I think initially, or what makes me want to acquire a taste, I don't think FOMO is the right concept, fear of missing out. But I am intrigued by unlocking a world of enjoyment that comes with a barrier of entry, would be one way of saying it. So it's not something that just anybody can walk up and be like, oh yeah, I like sugar. I mean, obviously, right? But something that requires a practice or a little bit of extra knowledge or, along those lines is very interesting, because then I see that there are people that really get into things and they can tease out all of this world of depth and interestingness in a space that isn't always super obvious. And I think that's really fun. So that's why I enjoy acquiring tastes, and maybe why I'm super motivated to continue doing it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a difference though between FOMO and being intrigued with why other people are interested in this thing and wanting to learn more, and insecurity about not understanding the thing. So basketball and volleyball and sports in general, something I've always been really insecure about not being good at or not loving.
Okay.
So the idea of getting into it was always intriguing to me so that I could overcome that insecurity. But then I kind of recognized over time that acquiring this taste just to fit in, there is a space where acquiring taste could become kind of unhealthy just to fit in, when you could just recognize maybe it's not your thing.
Sure.
And that's okay too.
Is it an acquired taste, though? I think an important component of it is that at the end, you actually like the thing. So what you're describing to me is you pretended to like sports and
Yes.
in order to fit in, but in the end, it really wasn't the sports you cared about. It was the status or whatever associated with being somebody who knows about sports.
Exactly.
Whereas an acquired taste would be at the end, you're like, but I also genuinely like sports and would watch them whether or not anybody else cared that I did.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be that person. So is that like a failed acquired taste? Is it a failed potential acquired taste?
I think so. You like made an effort, or were you actually trying to like acquire being less insecure?
Right, and that's kind of the question. I decided to care less about me not enjoying sports. And so then I was comfortable with me not knowing all the stats to all the Packer games and stuff.
There was a Heidi at one point that knew all of that.
I really wanted to, and I tried, and it just didn't stick. And I was like, there's no point in this, and I don't enjoy spending time doing
meaningless.
it. Literally,
Everything is meaningless.
It's all vapor, okay? Anyways.
So then, yeah, maybe I would say that's a failed acquired taste. You did make an effort to do the thing, and the motivator, there were different motivators there, but they just weren't strong enough.
And just find joy in the way that the Lord made me, and like, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it would help if we went through some of the things that we
let's do it.
have acquired tastes for.
Okay.
I don't know that I remember a specific time when I didn't like spicy food, but associated with the self-confidence component that you were describing, there's something very performative to me about eating spicy food, right? So I think what we're going to find is that there's very strange motivators sometimes behind why you acquire tastes.
Yeah.
So one of them for me that I still continue to like find the next hottest thing that I can. But if I do, I'm not going to go into my room and close my door and eat my spicy food to my father who is unseen and sees what is done in secret, right? I'm going to go tell somebody, guys, you know how many Scoville units I just braved, right? There's a
It wouldn't even you wouldn't have even done it that way. You would have gotten said spicy item and waited until you had
somebody to watch me eat it.
To eat it.
Exactly. So there's a performative aspect.
Just gone and told people. You would have just waited.
But that's not
until
to say
there were witnesses.
Yes, probably. But that's not to say, like, even when it's just you and I, and we get Thai food, I still get it spicy. So it's not entirely like, oh, Dylan actually hates spicy food. He just does it as a stunt. Right?
There's a stunt aspect.
But there is a stunt aspect. That's all I'm trying to say. So
yes.
Complex motivations.
Okay.
So that's one of mine.
Nice.
That you have acquired.
That I have acquired. That is an acquired for me.
So I couldn't think of a food item or drink that I have attempted to acquire the taste for and successfully done so.
Wow. There's not a single one?
No, and I tried. So my currently...
Okay, but you also eat everything, which I think ties into your point of, does it count as an acquired taste if you've always liked it?
Yeah, and I don't think so, because innately it's an opposite. It's just occurred. And so then the things... all of the tastes that I have not acquired in the food category, not all, but a handful of them that I can think of that I have made a conscious effort to try to and have had various motivators, again, for them, include coffee, wine, whiskey, tea, and spicy food.
Okay. A lot of those overlap with things that I have acquired and
Yeah.
then subsequently tried to force you to acquire.
Yes.
So a few without you would be like coffee and tea. Everyone says tea is like good for you when you're sick, and I'm not sick all that frequently, but yeah, like the idea that you could just have a nice soothing tea when you're a little bit under the weather, or a nice sleepy time tea before bed, or whatever it is, I'm always like, it's just not good. Same thing, and tea is very similar to me to like any version of kind of flavored water.
So like LaCroix is
LaCroix, bubbly, like all of those. I'm like, just either be water or be the flavor. Don't this half junk. It's just garbage. And I've tried to like these. Like there are so many brands that have decided that this is the thing they're going to do. Like so many people are making a lot of money. Not that like I'm trying to make money off of it. I'm like, obviously so many people enjoy these. I'll give it a try. Yeah. Every single time they come out, someone in our house likes to try the newest one or the newest flavor. And then I'm like, yeah, I'll have a sip. This is garbage. Just give me normal water. Don't try to be one or the other. And
Or lemonade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you feel as Jesus does in Revelation when he says, "You are neither warm nor cold, and therefore I spit you out of my mouth."
I'm like,
lukewarm.
spit that out of my mouth. Like either be pomegranate or be water.
Yes.
And then the coffee one, like that one I made a very strong effort for because
She did.
And I've done this more and I've attempted more than one time, in fact. Got to college, they're like, you're going to drink coffee when you're in college because you're not going to sleep and all of these things. And truly, I didn't. I'd be super tired. So I was like, okay, I'll try coffee. Obviously, easy like solution here. Caffeine. And I tried coffee with creamer. I tried coffee drinks, mochas and lattes and cappuccinos, coffee shakes, coffee ice cream. None. So I just... College, it's fine. Gave up. I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'd prefer to take a nap than drink a cup of coffee. And I do that in my life now because I just recently tried again because my husband didn't really believe that I made an effort for coffee. And I was like, listen, I will try again. I will try to like coffee. Did that for a week. I quit.
Okay, so you didn't really
Like now I don't. I did. No, I tried normal coffee and then he was like, well, maybe that's too much. Let's try just putting a little bit into something you already like. And then I was like, but now I don't like chai tea with coffee in it. So now you ruined both things.
So you're just accepting that you don't like coffee.
Yeah, so I gave up on coffee. Wine,
So
same
it's a
thing.
failed acquired taste.
White wine, rosé, red wine. Dylan makes me sip every single beer he drinks. Absolutely not.
I didn't realize I was enforcing some of the principles we'll get into of the science of acquired tastes inadvertently on you.
Yeah.
In having you do that.
It
But
didn't
I
work.
shall not be dissuaded. I shall continue.
Do you want a sip of this? Sure. Sip. What does it
Tastes
taste
like
like?
beer.
Tastes like beer. Do you like it? No.
My acquired food tastes are beets. I hated them as a kid. My mom made us eat them. And then your pee turns red. Did you guys know that?
I have not acquired the taste of beets, so I wasn't aware.
Okay,
I did
yeah.
not know that.
Some people's pee turns red when they drink beets. Drink it, eat it. Sorry. You can drink beet juice also, which is kind of good. Now I like it. And then mustard. Dude.
Just like your regular old
Like
Frank's
yellow
yellow
mustard,
put on
right.
your hot dog mustard.
Yeah, I could not stand it. You know, when you go to McDonald's and you order like a hamburger, I always had to say no mustard. And 99% of the time, I got a cheeseburger with mustard. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, a couple years ago, I was like, I'll try a little bit of like Dijon mustard. And I kind of liked it. I was like, okay. And over time, yeah, now I love yellow mustard. Those are like basically the only two things. I also just innately like food that I can eat.
Okay.
So
You are not a coffee drinker, but not for reasons of distaste.
I enjoy the taste of coffee.
Ah, okay.
I
And you
don't like the
always have?
caffeine. Yeah, pretty much.
Really? Mm-hmm. That is strange to me because, so this gets into my acquired taste because coffee's the next one on my list.
Okay.
The very first memory I have of drinking coffee was 4 a.m. It was my dad and I and this other guy that my dad knew in this guy's farmhouse, like 2 hours north of where I grew up.
Wow.
We were getting up early to go deer hunting, and it was like minus 15 degrees, and they were being manly men, and they had a cup of coffee, and they were like, "How you doing?" My dad doesn't actually talk like that, but
Not
in
at
my
all.
memory, this farmer guy talked, "How you doing? You want some coffee?" And I was up at 4 a.m. I was with the men. I had to drink a cup of coffee, and it was horrible. I hated it, but I stomached it because I had to be manly. And then after that, it just
I don't
was,
need to be manly, so I'm not worried about it.
coffee isn't manly, though. There's a lot of women that drink coffee. But, like, I knew it tasted bad. It tasted like bitter water to me. And it was just like, ugh. But that was the first step.
Yeah.
I'm realizing that as I go through these, there's a significant, like, do it and you're cool component to my acquired tastes a little bit.
There's a manly aspect to it a
There
little
is.
bit too.
There is. Yeah, that's also very, very accurate.
Yeah.
Whiskey, I think, is probably the most mature of my decisions in terms of acquiring tastes.
Sure.
Because it was like, I think there's a lot of complexity here that I want to be able to understand.
But I could argue that alcohol is an acquired taste for almost everyone. So I guess it kind of is for me. Like, I would sip my mom's wine growing up. More like actually my dad's beer, because my mom didn't really drink a ton of wine. But he would say, "You want a sip?" I'm like, "Sure." I'm like, "That's disgusting. I'm never drinking in my life." And then I like it now as an adult. So I guess it's acquired.
Yeah. How about non-food? Do you guys have anything in the non-food category? I realized I didn't put in here the color orange, which I can get into that. If how do you acquire the taste for color? But I did.
Tell the orange story.
Tell the orange story.
Okay.
It's tied to the mountain biking because I got you an orange mountain bike. But I didn't distinctly know at the time there's a handful of colors that you didn't prefer, and I didn't know that orange was one of them.
And
then you were like, well, I could acquire the taste for orange. And I was like, well, no, we can just like return that bike and get a different one.
she was like, first off, that sentence makes no sense.
And then you were like, no, it's fine. I'll just
My sentence was, I've been considering the color orange,
considering.
and I think I'm okay with it now.
I was like, oh, good. So you accept that orange is a color? Like, what does considering orange mean? It's just a thing.
Yeah, so that was one non-food item,
Interesting.
the color orange.
Color orange.
We're talking about
So much
things
growth.
that we have successfully acquired that we're not
Yeah,
food.
if you want to cut in with something that you have not acquired, go for it.
Well, I
or
mean,
failed.
there's still failed acquisitions on there, but I do think I have more. So piggybacked off of your color idea. I don't think it was like a full-on dislike, but pink and purple have not really ever been my colors.
That tracks with the line from your dad when he said that you were the son that he never had.
Yeah.
If you remember,
There we go.
you can go back and listen to the interview with Pastor Chuck.
Yep. Yeah.
Here we are. But I'm just saying, acquiring the taste, when I was younger, I would have absolutely anything that was pink or purple, that was for my sister. Not me. Blue, lime green, orange.
Fortunately, the boys' clothes in the boys' section where you shopped didn't happen to have a lot of those colors.
They didn't. Precisely.
Did you have any non-food acquired tastes, Heidi?
Yeah. Cats and dogs.
Okay. Pets, just pets in general or specifically cats and dogs?
Specifically cats and dogs.
Okay. When did you acquire this taste?
Okay. Dogs. So I'm a kind of small person. And so my friends from high school had this dog that was a wiener dog, like so one of those little ones, but it had a really intense bark. And so I would always get really scared going to their house because he would like nip at my feet and bark really loud. And so I did not like dogs until my parents got us a dog, a German short-haired pointer. So not a small dog, a relatively large hunting dog. And I kind of fell in love with Mickey. And then suddenly my friend's dog seemed pretty pathetic, honestly. I really...
Didn't even count as a dog anymore. And that's how you acquired a taste for cats.
kind of. Actually, that's funny. No, I really did love Liebling. That was the name. So sorry, friends. But Liebling was great. Just like not as intense as Mickey, the dog that we did have. But then we got rid of Mickey because he like completely destroyed my parents' backyard and was just a really bad dog. And my parents had no time or attention to like train him. So anyways, we got rid of Mickey, and then I kind of let my fear of larger dogs come back. And then Jill and Dylan have this wonderful large dog named Teddy.
Teddy.
Yeah, you're very good with Teddy. I would have never guessed that you were afraid of large dogs.
Oh, yeah, I did not like large dogs.
I think I only knew that because as Teddy grew,
Yes.
you mentioned a few times you were like, I really like Teddy, but like if you could just like stay over there, that would be really great. And I was like, yeah, okay, like I'll just like bring him over here. And he got bigger and then you started hugging him and I was like, I think that she doesn't need the space anymore.
That actually sounds very similar. You might even say that you've acquired a taste for large dogs because of Teddy. Because
More so.
when we were discussing getting a third dog, you were kind of like, oh, I don't know how I feel. I'm not a huge fan of big dogs. And when we got Teddy, he wasn't big. And so you got to just kind of be acclimated over time
Right.
as he got bigger and
Probably
bigger
true.
and bigger.
But now we love Teddy.
But now we love Teddy.
Everyone loves Teddy.
And Teddy has helped me not be afraid of, I wouldn't say afraid is the right word, just like he's helped me be more comfortable.
Less apprehensive.
Yeah.
So the one of the tastes that I've acquired that isn't a food is an activity. It's mountain biking. And that one, this ties in again to what's your motivation? Jill really likes mountain biking. I'd never done mountain biking before I met Jill. And my first summer of it was just awful. But I had a conversation with myself at one point and was like, look, this is something that Jill, a person who I care about, this is something that she really likes.
Yes.
And so if you want to do an activity that she really likes and spend time with her, this would be a good way to do that. And so I figured it out. And now I do enjoy mountain biking. It's gotten to the point where I would go mountain biking without Jill, right? That's the true sign of the acquired taste there is
Got it.
I don't have to be with Jill to enjoy doing it. So,
Nice. I'm hoping to get there with dirt biking.
okay. Because your boyfriend is a motocross aficionado.
So I couldn't care less about dirt bikes. The idea of sitting there and watching people go around in circles on a dirt bike used to just be like, this is the silliest thing ever. Complete waste of time. Now, my Saturday evenings are watching motocross
Where people go around in circles
on their
a
dirt
dirt
bikes.
on their dirt bikes.
It's actually kind of cool. Like,
That is a definition textbook acquired taste right there.
yeah.
Now, would you spend your own Saturday doing that without Nick at this point?
So I generally don't watch television by myself. So like I don't think it would be the first thing to cross my mind, but if someone who like wasn't Nick was like, "Yeah, let's go watch motocross," I would be like, "Yeah, for sure." I might even suggest it
Yep, there you go. You're almost there.
Acquired.
You're almost all the way there.
for watching the sport.
Yeah.
Right. Like
For
if you were
physically doing it, I have to get there.
Eventually. There's
If
hope
you-
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's hope.
But if you were like, yes, the activity I'm going to do tonight is watch something.
I would maybe suggest that we should
Yes,
watch the motocross
might
races.
be on that list.
Yeah. Which is cool. I think it has to do with like learning more about the different riders and how it all works. So,
Yeah.
Which raises a key point, I think, that information or motivation by information is a reason to acquire tastes.
certainly.
So if you're intrigued by wanting to know more about something, or once you know more about something, you find yourself having more of an affinity for it, maybe less of a motivator and more of a mechanism. So
Yeah.
one way to acquire a taste is to learn more about it, and that can help you appreciate something that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. A taste that I would like to acquire is difficult reading. So to be more specific there, I would consider reading fantasy books to be easy reading, right? Which, as we discussed 2 episodes ago, engaging with those types of stories isn't a wrong thing to do, I don't think. Right? You can glean a lot of truths, and it makes them maybe easier to receive and digest if they come in the form of a story. But I'm thinking like heavy theology or like, War and Peace or like the really hefty stuff, right?
Yeah. Deep.
And acquire a taste and actually like desire to read that. Because right now when I think about that, I'm like, oh, that's going to be a chore. But it would be really cool if I could like look forward to opening up a book like that and engaging with it. I haven't started acquiring that yet, but it's on my list of things I'd like to acquire.
I feel like that takes a lot of like mental capacity.
I mean, any of these do, right? You have to decide ahead of time.
Yeah, that's
And then
Yeah.
make sure that the motivation to do it exceeds the pain and suffering that you go through to achieve it, right?
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. Something I would like to acquire that is just not really in my nature, but I think socially it's something that should be required is shooting guns.
Amen, sister.
I would not ever think to pick up a weapon to potentially use, but I think it is a taste that I need to acquire and at least be competent in.
The fact that you're saying that to me tells you that another point, we'll do like a summary. I'm going to end up spoiling all of the things, all the research I did on like how tastes are acquired.
Yeah.
Repeated exposure is one way that helps a lot with acquired taste. And you hang out a lot with us, and I'm always carrying a gun. And I'm always carrying a gun, and Jill is always carrying a gun, right?
Yeah.
And so that repeated exposure to that, I think maybe is why you're able to say, yeah, I would like to acquire that taste.
Totally.
Not that we're taking all the credit for it, but the idea of repeated exposure, right?
Yes. The repeated exposure of just like be around them, and then it will take repeated exposure for me to like hold it and learn about it and shoot it myself. So yeah, that's something I really want to do, and
That's
I think
awesome.
I should do.
Yeah. Cool. We're going to have to go gun shopping.
There we go.
So it was interesting, though, going through both my list of things that I've acquired versus haven't acquired. And obviously, outside of the ones that were like foods, again, I'm not a picky eater, but I kind of see the ones that I haven't acquired as like extracurricular foods, like wine and coffee and tea.
Yeah.
Nobody needs those to obviously survive or get nutrition. I eat all the things that I like and always have liked, and those are the things that people need to be eating. And so I guess maybe I never feel like I'm missing out on anything for that fact.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about the various things, but I did some looking into, what do the scientists have to say about acquired tastes and maybe why we have them, or if you're looking to acquire a taste, what are some strategies or some things that you can know about it to kind of hack your brain a little bit to help you. So one of the things, or one of the main categories, I guess, of information has to do with like development. So over the course of your life, it seems that it is easier or harder to acquire taste at different points. So if we think of like babies just are naturally born liking sweet things and fatty things in general. You put sugar on a baby's mouth, they think it's the best thing ever. Put a lemon in the baby's mouth and they're going to react very poorly to that, right? And people do that and it's really funny, haha babies. But what's shown there, haha babies. What's shown there is this, that inherently in people, we are pre-wired to like sweet and fatty things and not to like bitter or sour things. And so the hypothesis is that we evolved, and I think that's BS. So we're going to say God created us with the inherent instinct to like things that are sweet and fatty and not like things that are sour and bitter, because in nature, if you run across something that's sour or bitter, there's a good chance it's poisonous.
There's a potential.
There's a potential. Now, this is why acquiring taste is so interesting, because we know that not everything that is bitter or sour is poisonous. And in fact, some of them are very good for you and nutritious, and you should eat them. Like broccoli, for example, is relatively bitter, but it's very good for you. So as you get older and as your taste buds mature and your ability to make decisions matures, then you have the ability to choose to learn to like things that you initially weren't predisposed to like, in order to get the full nutritional package that you need, that you didn't necessarily need when you were a baby drinking milk. And then the last stage of that is when you are old. So as you get older into like the aging years, your taste buds become fewer and they become smaller and they become less sensitive. And so that's, I think, partially why you think like crusty old men, they like their sharp cheese and their strong mustard, right?
Yeah.
And it's because I think in older people, what they found is that flavors are just generally less intense. So in order to seek out enjoyment in eating things, they will gravitate towards things that would revile somebody who has a younger palate, essentially, because the flavors are so strong, it would turn us away, and it doesn't do that if you're older.
I better start aging cheese now for myself because I love sharp cheese currently.
Which is interesting, right? So but you just have always liked that.
Oh, I've always loved sharp cheese.
So
Sharper the better.
Wow.
And
Put your
it's
tongue
not
on it.
acquired.
Innate.
Yeah.
But you don't like blue cheese.
Nope.
So there's a distinction between sharp cheese and like moldy, funky cheese, right?
Yes.
Which is another thing that I think ties into the next piece of this. So that was developmental influence. There's also cultural influence having to do with this. So we all grew up in America where we had American food, which depending on like it varies actually pretty widely depending on what region of the country you're in. So if
Right.
you grew up in the South, maybe you're going to have a higher tolerance for spicy food.
Sure.
I grew up in South Dakota where
Bland.
it's bland, but somehow I still like spicy food. So it's not always a one-to-one, right, necessarily.
Yeah.
And it's
Kind
not
of like almost acquiring taste, kind of almost it seems the way you've split it too, and the research and science says is they've essentially broken it down to nature versus nurture again.
in an
Kinda.
aspect, yeah. And it is some of both. Interesting that it doesn't really seem to be genetic necessarily, though.
Right. But developmentally, like that's just nature. Like our
Yeah,
taste
babies.
buds. Yeah, our
being the way that
babies
they are.
and then babies being the way they are, and then as you get older, your taste buds obviously being desensitized as you age. That
Right.
just naturally happens. No one's like making that happen.
Right.
Right.
It's just natural.
So another component of that nurture, right? When you're a kid, it has to do a lot with your family. What does your mom cook for you?
Yeah.
But then once you start experiencing broader things, that gets to maybe the peer pressure aspect, which I talked about, or the performative aspect, right? That I expressed when eating spicy foods. Or if there's peer pressure, like for alcohol, if it's like, oh, everyone's drinking beer, I think this tastes gross, but if I don't drink it, I'm not going to fit in. And then you inadvertently acquire the taste that way.
Totally. That happens all
Right.
the time.
So that would be one. And maybe a less, not, I don't think nefarious is the right word, but you could imagine role models. So you see somebody, and this is used in marketing extensively, right?
Yeah.
You see somebody that you think is cool who's like, I drink milk. And then you're like, boy, Arnold Schwarzenegger drinks milk. I want to drink milk too, right?
Get the milk mustache.
Exactly. Sometime we have to talk about government cheese. That's
Okay.
a teaser.
I don't know what that is.
Did you ever find it strange? Like, who's advertising milk? Got milk.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, like, Lando Lakes. It's just like, drink your milk.
It doesn't matter what brand. Also, it makes no sense whatsoever.
I know the answer to why. I know we will do the history on the Got Milk campaign, and it will blow your mind. Role
models.
That was all under role models. Sorry. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It breaks down to nature versus nurture. To put it in that category, there's something about the way that we are designed that makes us more susceptible to certain tastes at various points in our life.
Yeah.
And it also has a lot to do with where you grow up and the foods that you've had and the sort of personality you have and whether you want to rebel against that or not.
But there's also, like I said, with pink and purple, there's also the cultural part or the peer pressure and like the opposite direction of I want to do it
Because everyone
not
says you shouldn't do
because
it.
everyone is, but because they say you shouldn't
Yeah.
or otherwise.
For sure.
It's
Yeah.
interesting.
So the last piece under this section would be what are the ways to acquire taste? What things can you do if you're like, boy, I'd really like to acquire a taste? What things can help you in that direction? And we've touched on a number of these.
Are these tips and tricks
These are
specifically for your wife?
And anyone else who would like to acquire a taste. So we talked about repeated exposure being one of them.
Yep.
I've heard numbers from various sources like you have to have a thing 40 times before you like it, or no, it's 100 times. The point being, the more interactions you have with a thing, either that be direct, as in like I am physically eating this thing, or even just being around something
Yes.
or a part of an activity nearby it, you are exposed to it, and therefore it becomes more acceptable to you in your mind, and you can acquire it that way.
Exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy. Yep. When you do that, there is a remapping of the neural pathways that happens. So this is actually like a physical change in your brain, having to do with the concept of neuroplasticity, which is also why people say that it is often easier to acquire taste when you're an adolescent, because that's when your brain is still forming those connections. And so if you want to learn how to like something, it's going to be easier then. That's not to say that you can't modify your brain when you're older. It's just a lot harder.
Yeah. But that's so cool that like someone who's 60 years old has the same opportunity as someone who's like 18 or 19 to change their mind or their activity or their interests.
Yes.
Very cool.
And then the last note I would have under here is that oftentimes there's this linking with between the thing that you're trying to acquire the taste for and pleasant or unpleasant experiences. So you might find that it's easier to acquire a taste for a thing. So like it was the right idea when you were putting coffee in your chai. You already liked chai. So you were trying to put the thing that you were trying to acquire the taste for with something that you already liked. So then you were linking in your mind this one thing that I'm trying to learn to like with the thing I already like.
Right.
Right.
And eventually then you can just have the thing that you were trying to learn to like because you like it independently. What can happen though, so the example I found in the article actually was very, very close to an experience that I've had. So oysters would be one. So if you are like, I want to learn to like oysters, and so you eat a bunch of oysters, and then the first time that you did so, you got violently ill with oysters. Now, the thing that you were trying to learn to like is associated with a very bad experience. And so now you got an additional hurdle that it's not just you are ambivalent or you're like, I don't know how I feel about this. It triggers a negative response. And for me, I did that with mussels by accident.
Oh no.
So I avoid them now if I can, not because I think I don't like them. I just had a bad experience. And so
Yeah.
I avoid them. So
Makes sense.
So link it to good experiences is the advice. Try to line up the thing you're trying to learn to like with another positive association.
Like Teddy.
Like Teddy. Yes.
Like I enjoy the people, Teddy's mom and dad. And so therefore I have to have exposure to Teddy.
Yes.
And so then I have to learn to like him.
There you go.
And I have. It's good.
All right. For the last piece, since this is the Ember Exchange, we always have to take it to what does the Bible have to say about this? And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I really struggled. The Bible doesn't say anywhere, thou shalt acquire tastes or thou shalt not acquire tastes. So I had to get a bit creative. I don't know what you guys were thinking. For me, it kind of came down to self-discipline is a good thing, but complacency towards evil is bad. So
Yes.
Yeah.
don't acquire a taste for an evil thing. Obviously.
Yeah, but like swearing would be one thing. Like for me, when I'm around people who swear a lot, like when I was in college, it just like started to lose its shock value. And so then I was just like complacent with that. And then it started to like leach into my own speech. And then I was swearing all the time eventually by the end of college. And I had to take a conviction to like stop that again. So you can certainly just become complacent with the people that you're around and fit right in.
Right.
Yeah. This is definitely vague isn't a good way to put it, but kind of. It's not explicitly
Right.
listed in the Bible, of course. But the little bit that I was also able to find actually went towards, I guess, a little bit towards the self-discipline, but also that like, knowledge and wisdom are good things. And one of the motivators that you said when you were acquiring your taste, Dylan, was that sometimes it was. You just want to know more or learn more or be able to experience more and enjoy it because not because you have FOMO and you think you're missing out on something, but because now you get to just enjoy more with more people and more experiences, whatever it is, due to the fact that you now have this knowledge
Yeah.
of another thing.
Yeah.
So I found a few. Mine were all actually happened to all land in Proverbs.
Okay. Share a couple.
Yeah. So I have Proverbs 18:15 says, an intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. So even uses the word acquires conveniently in there.
There we go.
Sure enough.
Nice.
Look at that. And also Proverbs 1:5 said, let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. So just learning more and doing more. And the last one being Proverbs 23:12. Apply your heart to instruction and your ears to the words of knowledge. So we have to apply ourselves and learn new things.
Nice. I had a Proverbs as well. Proverbs 25:28. This relates to the self-discipline aspect, right? Because if you're going to acquire a taste, you're not always going to like the process of it, but you're doing it because you think that the outcome is going to be good.
Yeah.
That's self-discipline. So Proverbs 25:28 says, like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. So if you don't want to be like a city whose walls are broken through, then you need to be acquiring tastes. That's how I interpret that.
Yeah, there we go. And like just like we were talking about before, like complacency towards evil does mean that you just aren't striving for better and to become closer to the Lord. And acquiring taste is a part of, I think, becoming a Christian, because you get to acquire this understanding of your creator, which is really cool. And in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 33, it says, "Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character." And this is actually really interesting because Paul, the one writing this, is actually quoting a Greek poet named Menander?
Menander, I think.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Like, he's just a poet and he knows it over doing Greek stuff. And then you get quoted and then your words are like scripture forever.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
It is wild, but it's cool to know that like Paul really, like, Jesus was an acquired taste for him. Like, he hated Christians, and then all of a sudden he had to come to Jesus moment, and then he had to acquire.
I mean, it kind of happened all at once. There was no like repeated exposure and slow acquisition. It was like, wham!
Yes.
Now
so
you're blind.
There was an experience, but then I'm certain that over time, like it says, he took 3 years to just like
That's true.
grow and
That is true.
understand what Christianity was. Of course, they weren't using the word Christian at the time, but like what following Jesus was.
Yeah.
So that certainly must have been an acquired taste, especially, and I think acquired tastes have a lot to do with like the social status of things as well. So Paul's going from being like a leader of the Pharisees to all of a sudden like people don't recognize him for like as being a part of this anymore.
And he was at the bottom of the totem pole, like when he started, right? He was like a top dog for the Pharisees, and then he
Right.
comes in and he knows the least of all of the like Christians.
Right.
And so he's got to like submit himself to teaching, like we talked about, right? And I'm sure that was
Yeah.
a very humbling experience for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taking both self-discipline and taking a lot of knowledge,
Yeah.
literally like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah. And then he learned it so well that he was able to teach and preach the gospel, which is amazing. And then he also obviously had an open enough mind to things that he disagreed with to even know a quote from this Greek poet. So he didn't just stay in his lane. He had an understanding of what was happening culturally and had possibly like an acquired taste to that,
Sure.
Yeah.
so that he could write about it in scripture. So yeah, don't be misled. Bad character corrupts, or bad company corrupts good character. Yeah.
All right. Well, that kind of wraps my perspective. I think, yeah, I love acquiring tastes. I think that if you, the Embers, are looking to acquire tastes, we've given you some ideas on how you can go about doing that. And I'm going to keep having you guys taste whiskey, and maybe eventually
Great.
you guys will acquire the taste there too. So
I think there's potential for me. Jill, I don't want to speak for you, but I could enjoy it. I just don't know that my stomach particularly enjoys it, you know?
but you're willing to keep having it here on the show.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a couple
Okay.
sips here or there. Doesn't.
Okay, good. Because with that, I guess I'm going to move us over to Mortal Spirits.
Let's do it.
It is with great pleasure, gentlewomen, that I inform you that we have our first actual bourbon.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, we've tasted a lot of different whiskeys and things, but none of them have been actually bourbon.
Okay.
This one is a bourbon. And it's not just any bourbon. This is distilled by Old Forrester. It is a renowned Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey brand produced by the Brown-Forman Corporation. It was recommended to me by one of my friends, and this bottle is unopened. He let me sample his bottle, so I knew going in that this one was delicious. So I will still do the full tasting profile, but this isn't like a total blind first taste for me, but it will be for you guys.
Yes.
in terms of the information, I thought it would be cool to give you a little bit of background on Old Forester, the distillery, which turned out to be really interesting. I hosted a whiskey night it was like a weekish, a little over a week ago. And so I started doing some research into the different whiskeys that we were going to have. And it turns out that there's a lot of depth usually to these. And so that's kind of why I wanted to go into that with this one. So Old Forester has been on the market continuously. Continuously is a big word here, and you'll see why. For approximately 150 years, making it one of the oldest bourbons available. And it holds the distinction of being the first bourbon sold exclusively in sealed bottles. And the reason for that was they were trying to figure out ways to improve the quality assurance of alcohol at the time. And so by selling it in a sealed bottle, you knew that what went in the bottle wasn't being diluted or poured off the top by anybody who was nefarious.
Sure.
The sealed bottle was also, it was a popular approach with doctors and pharmacists because originally bourbon was used as a medicinal sort of ingredient
Yes.
in addition to being drank. And actually, one other note is that it used to be spelled Old Forester with two R's, Forrester, which was the name of a doctor that advocated for it. So it was like his brand, but they changed the name to Old Forester with like somebody who cuts down trees.
Yeah. Thank you.
To avoid association directly with that physician.
Sure.
So the guy who started it, it was first bottled and marketed in 1870 by George Garvin Brown. And it was one of only six, Old Forester received one of only 6 licenses to continue production during Prohibition as a medicinal component. So they were allowed to keep making their bourbon as medicine during Prohibition. There were only 6 places that got to do that. And that was why I made the emphasis on the word continuously, because most places that make bourbon had to stop during Prohibition, but they got to keep going. So that's the history on Old Forester. This bottle in particular is a single barrel strength. So single barrel means that it isn't a blend from a number of different barrels. And barrel strength means that it's very high proof. So this is 130.3 proof, which is quite strong.
That's wild.
And so that's why for you guys, I would definitely recommend put a little bit of a dropper of water in there to open up the flavors a little bit, proof it down. The mash bill here is 72% corn, 18% rye, 10% malted barley, which is reasonably high in rye for a bourbon. It does not have an age statement on the bottle, but the colloquial knowledge is that it's somewhere between 4 and 6 years old. This particular bottle comes from Warehouse K, and I didn't know this until I started doing research, but Warehouse K is kind of a big deal in the Old Forester lineup because it's been known to have some of their best single barrels come out of Warehouse K. The other thing you'll notice on the bottle, so on the front here, you can see it says Warehouse K, and then it also says floor 6. So the Warehouse K actually has 8 floors, and where the barrel comes from in the floors of it makes a difference. So the closer you are to the top, the greater the temperature fluctuations that the barrel experiences, and the more intense the flavors and the faster the aging process. So if this is 4 to 6 years old, it's going to taste older than something that's been in the warehouse the same amount of time on a lower floor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Adding a lot of water.
So
130 proof. I have to drive home.
you're going to be fine. You should stop there because
Okay.
there you go. Yep, you'll be fine. So that moves us on to the tasting, which
Okay.
I'm excited about. Boy, you poured a lot in there.
So are there notes in this that we should be?
There are loads of notes that I have
Okay.
written down. Do you
Lots
want
of
to try to
notes.
guess them?
Yeah, I think that's kind of fun.
Okay, well, I'll tell you first off, the color is deep amber, is what they call it. So
It is very deep.
this is
amber.
a single barrel also. Yeah, it's cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. This is a single barrel. So the flavors that we're going to get here and the flavors that I have written down are specific to this barrel and this bottle. So if somebody else is in their state and they get an Old Forester single barrel strength, it won't taste exactly the same. So
That's
just an
kinda cool.
FYI.
Wait, so what is it called when you swish it around and then
You see the legs?
the legs? It's very leggy, if that's a word.
Very leggy.
At least mine was.
Yours probably is going to have thicker legs because you put a bunch of water in it. So yeah, that was, I think I maybe mentioned this last time. When you put water in it, the water reacts with the esters and causes the viscosity to increase. So, all right, so give it a sniff.
I'm just getting rubbing alcohol.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I'm not getting any of that. You should be getting a bold burst of chocolate-covered cherry, tobacco, banana bread, and creamy vanilla.
Okay, so I'm catching the cherry, which is maybe why I said rubbing alcohol. I might mean cough syrup with that cherry flavor. And vanilla, that seems to be par for the course for a lot of these. Banana bread, interesting.
That's what they say.
Okay.
I could see banana bread.
Me too.
Tobacco's a harder one for me to pick out.
The banana
Maybe a
bread
little
is
bit.
strong once you say it.
All right, do we want to taste it?
Yeah. Every time.
It's just.
So what you're tasting there is medium sweet.
I think I got chocolate at the very end, but like everything else was just really bad.
You're doing really good. That's an improvement over last time when it was just alcohol and bad was your description. Because the last flavor on the palate is cocoa.
It was last.
There you go.
That was
So much burn.
that like okay, you know when you hits the back of your throat, but then it hit like the middle of my back too. Like through me.
And now, like, if you were stuffed up or anything, like all the sinuses are clear.
That's why this is medicinal, man. Seriously.
Medium sweet with an additional dose of orange peel, brown sugar, vanilla, and cocoa for the palate.
I
And
don't
then
think I got that.
the finish is long and pleasant. It develops more spice and complexity with notes of leather, allspice, and cinnamon.
Leather.
Can we create new ones? So, the nose, cherry cough syrup,
Yeah.
and
Moldy bananas.
perfect. Palate, rubbing alcohol, shot through the chest.
Literal. Yes. That is what I felt.
And chocolate. The finish, burning indigestion.
Massive acid reflux.
Acid reflux. With a resulting of potentially cleared sinuses.
Side effects may include.
Yes, exactly.
I thought that was pretty good.
So this is not one of the favorite ones that we've had.
For you or for any of us?
No, for me, I like this one a lot.
Oh, okay.
For you guys, we've had things that you've liked more.
Yes.
Mead notwithstanding, because that was really sweet.
It was so
But
good.
even of all the brown liquors we've had, this is
it
not.
just hurts.
Okay.
This one is not my favorite. What did you think though?
Yeah.
So when I first tasted this, and I can see if I can replicate it, for me, it felt like there were very much two waves to the flavor. So there was the upfront, like bourbon-y cherryness, and then there was the follow-up with the orange peel and the brown sugar. And it was like this very much two-staged experience, which was very nice. It is warm, right? It's 130 proof. This doesn't drink like 130 proof, though.
130 proof should be worse.
Yeah, this drinks like
Oh.
110 to me. Like comparatively speaking, this is doesn't burn as bad as it could, which speaks well to it, right? It's a very nice.
Yeah.
I think I'm
I don't. The banana thing is really throwing me off. Also, it was a very long taste.
yeah.
Like it
It
stuck
sat
around.
there.
It sits.
Yeah, the finish is long and pleasant. You were warned. Maybe you disagree with the pleasant part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
agree.
was this a positive experience that's helping you to acquire the taste for whiskey, or was this a bad experience that's pushing you further and further away?
I think this in general is more of a positive experience that could potentially push me to being more open.
Okay, that's good.
Just because we laugh and it's okay.
Yeah,
I
that's
just,
what's distinct about this
Yeah.
whiskey show from like basically anyone else you're gonna get. Like, because most people are like, yes, I'm so sophisticated, and
Yeah.
is that cordite? I think I'm getting cordite.
What the heck is cordite?
That would be in a scotch. That's like gunpowder.
Oh.
I just,
Yeah, I got a little gunpowdery.
No, you wouldn't get that in this.
Oh, okay.
I just
That was a
don't-
joke.
I don't feel like this strictly lands into extracurricular, and so I just like
You don't have the motivation.
I don't have the motivation to be like, this is gonna be great, and it's not great right now. And what's the point to suffer through making it great?
So are you gonna opt out of future installments of Mortal Spirits?
No, I continue to partake in your mortal spirits.
It's very nice of you.
But this is an experience like, you know how a guy is supposed to take a girl on like a date to a scary movie to get her heart rate up, and then like she associates that with with him.
Nope, never heard that one.
Oh, really?
Have you heard that one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A guy's supposed to take a girl on a date like over a tall bridge or something that like induces endorphins in her and makes her like anxious
And
or
usually,
super happy. Like, so
Right.
either a comedy or a horror movie. And then when you have extreme emotions like laughter or being afraid, then you associate that with the person you're with.
Right.
And it's usually a positive association.
because also, obviously, the extra like adrenaline and stuff, whether it's positive or negative, also creates an emotional response, and a lot of those then end up being also physical responses, like, oh, you gotta like grab someone's hand, or you like
Yes.
want to like be safe and secure in a scary movie next to someone, and the next to someone is gonna only be the person that you came on the date with.
Yeah. So,
I mean, that makes sense. So,
And if you're
so
happy,
which is
it's
this?
like high fives or hugs, etc. So
Which is this? Are you guys happy or scared?
well, that's what I'm saying. For me, this is like one of those moments because like this is so drastically just like not enjoyable. This one in particular, not all, but like it's the shot, but then it's like the laughter and joy
Yeah.
that comes after it. So this is one
the
of those.
the whole experience
Yeah.
together makes it a positive experience outside of the actual activity we're doing.
Right, but also like the actual activity. It's like a scary movie, right? It's
Yeah,
something that I'm
yeah.
like not super excited about, but then I get to like
Do this.
do this. So it's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's why it's a positive association for me with brown liquor now, which could prompt me to have it be an acquired taste.
Well, I finished mine, so
You did? No, you didn't.
yeah.
Oh, somehow I ended up with more in my glass. How did that happen?
Wow, I was like, come on. like,
You missed it.
The cameras are recording this. You realize
Yeah, I
the
do.
Embers all saw you do
I
that.
did. I
Embers
realized
did,
that,
I
but
didn't.
I tricked her, so
I was like, you did not. I would have heard way more coffee.
Well, thank you guys for tasting
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
There's have been others that I've really enjoyed.
Okay. How about this? The next one, I promise, will be less than 100 proof.
Yeah, that might help.
Because I brought some pretty high proof stuff. Because that's my preference. But
yeah.
for helping you guys
I
acquire
don't
the
know if it's
taste,
gonna help, but I'll be here for it.
I will bring something less than 100 proof.
Nice.
And with that, that's been Mortal Spirits.
It's been great.
Well, thank you, Ember, so much for joining us. I had a blast discussing acquired tastes with you guys and then continuing to work towards acquiring tastes.
Slowly but surely.
We're having fun over here. Hopefully, you're having fun listening and
Slowly.
watching along with us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. And we'd love if you shared with your friends and left us a review, drop us a like, leave a comment. We'd love to engage with you more and continuing having these conversations.
Yeah, and we are in long form on most of your podcast applications, but then also we're on X and Instagram and Facebook, so we'd love to engage with you in whatever way you prefer. And so yeah, if you want us to talk about anything in particular, we'd love to hear from you. Your feedback is very valuable. So thanks again for listening, Embers. You rock. And as always, burn bright.